They told us what they were going to do. Why are we surprised when they act on their own words? Listen to what they say. Read what they say. They are Marxists and they are communists. They are not Democrats and they are not liberals. Their goal is the utter collapse of the Western way of life. How long will it be before you realise this is not a game? Their aim to silence you, to control you, for you to submit to them. They don't care about elections. They don't care about democracy. They just want control. But we can stop them. You can stop them. Expose them. Join us. We will defeat them. It's 11:45 Eastern. It's time for A Radio's Morning Moment.
You're listening to A Radio.
Thank you for joining us. You're listening to A Radio, and this is the Morning Moment. Follow us on Spreaker.com and click on the like button. You can find us on most social media platforms such as iTunes, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Go to our website, aradio.wordpress.com, for details, where you'll find more content and details on our podcasts and more. What you're going to hear here is what I and many others know have been planning to silence you and me for speaking out. It does not just apply to the US. While that is their ultimate goal, the target is to silence us all. We have seen after the last election, 2016, that the left-driven lunatics were driven to despair. They had to have a plan. I've talked about this before, but nobody seems to be picking this up. It's Project Blue. It's on my website. You can see it there. It's clear to many of us that the real goal was to, in the US terms, mute the Republicans. That said, the sad thing is that Republicans refused to address this issue, while the Democrats started to ratchet up their censorship plan right after the 2016 election. Here's just part of the document that I will post later today. You can also find it on my website, aradio.wordpress.com. It'll be on the front cover. This document is from Alex Cristoforo, and I'm going to read parts of it to you, but I want you to read the whole document. The source of the document is the Duran, but for some reason they've taken it down. The date of this document is August 24, 2018. Yet nothing. No media, no coverage, no nothing. Here's part of the piece. A new leaked memo obtained by the Free Beacon documents how George Soros funded groups plotted with Google, Facebook, Twitter and other social media platforms to eliminate conservative, quote, right-wing propaganda, unquote. The article continues. The recent wave of censorship of conservative voices on the internet by tech giants Facebook, Twitter, YouTube and Apple mirrors a plan concocted by the coalition of George Soros-funded progressive groups to take back power in Washington from President Trump's administration. A confidential 49-page memo defeating Trump by working with major social media platforms to eliminate right-wing propaganda and fake news was presented in January 2017 by Media Matters founder David Brock at a retreat in Florida. This is Project Blue, as I've been telling you before. but it doesn't matter. This was reported by the Washington Free Beacon at the time. Here's just one of the clips. It's an actual image taken from the document. The heading is Media Advocacy, Punish, Enabling and Complacency. Media Matters will be vigilant in holding news media accountable for even the slightest bit of normalization of Trump. We will encourage journalists to defend standard practices like the protective press pool and media credentialing, and to strive for the highest standards against this new threat. So I'll decode that for a minute. Any new media they wanted to block. And even Fox News was involved in that, by the way, and we didn't know that at the time, did we? Here's another actual image, and I'll read that. We will apply the lessons learned. Generally and simply put, Democrats got clobbered in the digital space. Digital programs, both technical and messaging, failed to actively listen to and engage the online grassroots universe. Trump camp spoke effectively to the grassroots and relied on online channels to disseminate information and misinformation and influence the media, even getting fake stories onto cable TV. And the right colonized Facebook, which has established a virtual monopoly on information distribution. Our digital efforts were largely focused on changing the narrative with the traditional media versus voters. This worked to a point, but wasn't enough in the face of the news media incentivized by profit and access, and fearful of intimidation and bullying by Trump forces. Here's the heading. We will fully adapt to the new reality and we will win. Here's how. In the next 4 years, Media Matters will continue its core mission. Listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. This is key. Our core mission of disarming right-wing misinformation while leading the fight against the next generation of conservative disinformation. The proliferation of fake news and propaganda now threatening the country's information ecosystem. Here's what success will look like. And there's a series of bullet points. Serial misinformers and right-wing propagandists inhabiting everything from social media to the highest levels of government will be exposed and discredited. Sound familiar? Internet and social media platforms like Google and Facebook will no longer uncritically, without consequence, host and enrich fake news sites and propagandists. Toxic alt-right social media-fueled harassment campaigns that silence dissent and poison our national discourse will be punished and halted. Do you hear that? I'm going to say that again. Toxic alt-right social media-fueled harassment campaigns that silence dissent and poison our national discourse will be punished and halted. Time out here. It's been CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, PBS and whatever it's called, have been attacking Donald Trump non-stop. Non-stop. It's not the conservatives. They only had one platform, and now that's been taken away from them by the owners of Fox News. Well, just a little word to Fox News. We're going to take Fox News away from Fox News. Anyway, the article continues. American Bridge will cement itself as the standard bearer of opposition research, build on its role of progressive clearinghouse for information that drives the narrative on the Republican office holders and candidates, and it will be the epicenter of Democrats' work to regain power starting in 2017 and building to 2020. Here's what success looks like. Trump will be defeated either through impeachment or at the ballot box in 2020. See, they set it out right there. They are corrupt. And this is George Soros. No one has the guts out there on the media to talk about this. It's George Soros. He needs to be held accountable because he's saying it right there. That makes me so angry to read those words. I'll read them again. Trump will be defeated either through impeachment. They did impeachment. Fake impeachment. Lies. They are corrupt. The balance of power will shift back to Democrats. We will measurably impact the US Senate, gubernatorial, state legislative races. We will free ourselves from solely relying on the press. Our robust digital program will reach voters directly online. Bingo. Bingo. That's why you have been silenced. if you had read this, if you had passed this on, if the Republicans had done their job, Donald Trump would be elected President of the United States with a massive majority, because this would have been exposed. So the question you have to ask yourself is this: are the Republicans Republicans? Or is it time for a new party? A Trump party? I think it is. I'm going to read a short piece now from another article, which I want you to understand is a Canadian article, but it has a relevance which we'll get to at the bottom. Now, the links to this article will be put on Parler as well. I am not putting this on Twitter because Twitter is fake. Anybody listening to this needs to get off Twitter now. Get off Facebook now. Don't use YouTube. I'm urging Spreaker to give us other alternatives that we can post. I would like Spreaker to start posting on Parler. So with that in mind, I'm going to give you this Canadian piece from the Millennium Report, and I will put the link up to this. Now, this is only part of the document. You need to go and have a look at this in its entirety, basically. It starts off like this: Canadian corruption. It's as though very few even care that Justin Trudeau's good friend jailed for child porn charges, and there's more. Then there's the naked governmental corruption going on in the background throughout Trudeau's entire team in office, such as major ongoing scandal. Trudeau implements highly organised cover-up on SNC Lavaland. All evidence has been in plain sight where Justin Trudeau was exposed as a neoliberal, corrupt corporatist in the SNC Lavaland scandal. Really, the whole of Canada has been made brutally aware about Trudeau, another empty suit who is as corrupt and as lawless as Obama. This is the bit you'll like. Stolen elections. The New World Order globalist cabal did what they always do when their golden boy doesn't stand a chance at the polls. They simply steal the election, but in a way that it is done totally under the radar. You're going to like this. How can this be unequivocally proved? Because of how the globalists have taken over the entire Canadian power structure, it can't be proved unless a whistleblower emerges. But that doesn't mean the electorate is not aware. Therefore, the only meaningful response is to this outright election theft is not to vote in the future by declaring a nationwide boycott. Let's see how the New World Order globalists react to a ballot day when no one shows up. Actually, I think that's a great idea. I think it's a tremendous idea. It's a risk, but what have we got to lose? Anyway, then they will lack the people's consent to do whatever they want to do, which is previously what prime ministers like Justin Trudeau allow them to do. Now, key point can occur through various means. The complicit mainstream media can rig it by withholding news reports that document even worse corruption by featuring distracting stories like blackface in the lead up to the poll. So I'm going to interject there. In the case of the recent election in the United States, I think you can say the laptop, don't you? I think you can say Hunter Biden, don't you? The only channel that was covering this, surprisingly, was Fox, because they didn't want to take their mask off just yet. But the American press refused to cover this. The Canadian press actually covered it, but the American press ignored it because it wasn't part of their narrative. Piece continues. The electoral process can be surreptitiously fixed by the political administrators of either major party, or the election machinery can be tampered with just as the counting equipment can be hacked to produce a bogus result desired by the globalist cabal. In point of fact, there are several ways to steal an election, some of which may fall outside the traditional definition of electoral theft. Really, would Trudeau's NWO masters even allow such a fanatical cheerleader for climate change hoax to be voted out of office? Now, there's much more on that piece. So why am I telling you about this piece, particularly that last paragraph? Well, there's much more of this article, particularly including direct links by Trudeau to the Clinton Foundation, making direct payments through Trudeau's government to it. But that's not the key point. The key point is the date of this article. It's not either September, October, or November 2020. This article was October 22, 2019. That means, ladies and gentlemen, the article was written 1 year before the US presidential election, which means the media knew and kept quiet and are complicit of the knowledge that voting machines could be hacked, and to acknowledge that they could be hacked. They won't even talk about it. Even Glenn Beck won't talk about it. Think about it. 2019, they knew the voting machines could be hacked. So is it so far-fetched to think they weren't hacked in 2020? I think not. You can find more at aradio.wordpress.com, where you can find links to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Gab, Parler, Spotify, and email. We are continuing to reach out to you, so please pass these links on to your friends. Please click on the follow button on Spreaker.com. You can listen to all our morning moments at Spreaker.com/A-Radio. That's EHRADIO, a radio. And please click on the like button. Join us Monday, Wednesday and Friday, 11:45 Eastern, for our morning moment or tweak. And tell your friends, pass the word. We only tell the truth, not what the Canadian mainstream media want you to know. This time, more than any in history, we all need to trust but verify.